The Roman Empire. Just saying the name conjures images of legions marching in perfect formation, conquering everything in their path. From the scorching sands of North Africa to the rugged hills of Britannia, Rome's legions had tasted victory countless times. Their formula for conquest was simple: conquer, hold, Romanize. Yet there was one region that consistently eluded their grasp, a place that became a thorn in the side of the empire: Germania. Why did Germania, with its dense forests and seemingly endless swamps, prove such a challenge for an empire that had subdued so much of the known world? To understand this, we need to journey back in time to the muddy battlefields and shadowy forests of ancient Europe. We need to look beyond the legions and gladiators and delve into the heart of what made Rome both mighty and vulnerable. The Roman war machine, for all its might, relied on order, on discipline, on the ability to control territory and resources. Germania, in its wild, untamed state, represented the antithesis of everything Rome strived for. It was a land where the Roman way of war, so effective elsewhere, would be tested to its breaking point. This is the story of that test. This is the story of Rome's struggle for Germania. The year was 9 AD. The Roman general Publius Quinctilius Varus, a seasoned commander with a distinguished record of service, led 3 legions deep into the heart of Germania. His mission was simple: to consolidate Roman gains and bring the region under the empire's control. Unbeknownst to Varus, however, a storm was brewing. A Germanic chieftain named Arminius, raised in Rome and trained in Roman military tactics, had secretly united the often warring Germanic tribes against their common enemy. What followed was a disaster of epic proportions for Rome. The legions, marching in unfamiliar terrain, were ambushed by Arminius's forces in the dense and unforgiving Teutoburg Forest. The Romans, weighed down by their equipment and unable to form proper battle lines in the thick undergrowth, were slaughtered. The battle raged for 3 days, a chaotic and brutal affair that saw the legions utterly destroyed. The Teutoburg Forest itself became a symbol of Roman defeat. It represented more than just a military loss. It highlighted the fundamental challenge Germania posed to Roman ambitions. The geography of Germania was vastly different from the open plains and rolling hills the Romans were accustomed to fighting in. Dense primeval forests, vast swamps, and unpredictable rivers made Germania a logistical nightmare for the Roman army. Their supply lines, stretched thin over vast distances, were vulnerable to attack, and the harsh climate added another layer of difficulty to an already daunting campaign. The Romans, masters of siege warfare and open combat, found themselves outmaneuvered and outfought in the close confines of the German forests. The Germanic tribes, intimately familiar with the land and fighting with the ferocity of cornered wolves, were able to use the terrain to their advantage, turning their home ground into a death trap for the invaders. Section 4. The limits of power, Roman logistics and the German problem. Rome's military might was undeniable, but it was not without its limitations. Their legions, while formidable, relied heavily on a complex and far-reaching logistical network. Conquering and holding territory required vast amounts of supplies, from food and water to weapons and armor. Germania, with its lack of developed infrastructure and its vast untamed wilderness, presented a logistical nightmare for the Romans. Roads, essential for the movement of troops and supplies, were few and far between. The rivers, while navigable in parts, were unpredictable and often treacherous. The Romans, used to conquering lands with established cities and infrastructure, found themselves bogged down in a land that seemed to actively resist their efforts at control. Every mile they marched further into Germania stretched their supply lines thinner, making them increasingly vulnerable to attack. Section 5. Caesar versus Arminius, a tale of 2 leaders. To understand Rome's struggle in Germania, it's essential to understand the men who led the opposing forces. Julius Caesar, the legendary Roman general, had briefly campaigned in Germania, crossing the Rhine River in a show of force and engaging in skirmishes with the Germanic tribes. However, Caesar's forays into Germania were more about securing his northern border and enhancing his own reputation than about outright conquest. Arminius, on the other hand, was driven by a deep-seated desire to free his people from Roman rule. His understanding of Roman military tactics, gained during his time as a hostage in Rome, proved invaluable in the Battle of Teutoburg Forest. He knew how the legions fought, he knew their strengths and weaknesses, and he used that knowledge to devastating effect. While Caesar saw Germania as a peripheral concern, a land of barbarians to be subdued and exploited, Arminius saw it as his homeland, a land worth fighting and dying for. This difference in perspective, in motivation, played a crucial role in shaping the outcome of the conflict. Section 6. The Roman Way versus the Germanic Way cultures at war. The clash between Rome and Germania was more than just a clash of armies. It was a clash of cultures. The Romans, with their highly centralized and organized society, valued discipline, order, and the rule of law. Their army, a reflection of their societal values, was a highly disciplined and regimented force, trained to fight as a single, cohesive unit. The Germanic tribes, in contrast, were fiercely independent, with a decentralized social structure and a deep reverence for personal freedom. Their warriors, while lacking the discipline of the Roman legions, were known for their ferocity in battle and their unwavering loyalty to their chieftains. The Romans sought to conquer and control, to impose their will on the conquered. The Germanic tribes, on the other hand, fought to defend their homeland, their way of life, their very freedom. This fundamental difference in worldview made finding common ground nearly impossible and fueled the fires of conflict for generations.